Hi and welcome back to ScottiesTech.Info. I'm Scotty with my co-host Cletus, and today I want to talk about GPS gizmos. So there are two types of people in the world. You can take a person and you can blindfold them and spin them around 33 times and plop them in the middle of a jungle. And one type of person, you'll take the blindfold off and they'll go, "Oh, I'm in a jungle." And they'll look up at the sun up there, they'll look at a tree over there, they'll hear a bird chirping behind them, and they'll go, "Okay, I know exactly where I am. I know what country I'm in. I know what jungle I'm in. I know that there is a town precisely 1.2 kilometers in that direction. I know that it will take approximately 1 hour to hike there. And I know that on the way we're going to meet the dreaded white puma or something. So I'm going to find a sharp rock and a branch and fashion a rudimentary spear to protect us along the way." That's the first type of person. The second type of person is me, where you'd put me in the jungle and you'd take the blindfold off and I'd go, "Ooh, I'm in a jungle, I think. And then I'd be totally lost. So for people like me, GPS devices such as this one are a lifesaver. Because if you're not a homing pigeon, and I am not, this guy will save your life. Okay, so the question is, we have smartphones these days, so why would you use one of these, a dedicated GPS, when you can just use your smartphone? Or why would you want to use one of these instead of, say, the GPS that's like built into your car? I mean, it's there, it works. Hopefully. Before I answer those questions, let us talk a little bit about what GPS is and how it works. So a normal GPS device, it has a little receiver in it, it has antennas. This is true whether it's a car, a smartphone, or a dedicated GPS device. And in short, the way it works is there are satellites orbiting around the Earth, and your GPS gizmo will act only as a receiver for those signals. All the satellites are shooting their signals down, and this guy will receive it. And when he receives the signals, the timing of the signals will be slightly different, so he does some fancy equations and stuff, and he will calculate your position on the surface of the Earth. That's pretty much it. That's all it does. They don't actually transmit. There's no Bluetooth involved. There's no Wi-Fi involved. There's no data connection to the cell phone network. It's a standalone gizmo, and all it does is receive signals from satellites, calculate your position on the Earth, and of course it displays your position on a map, and it allows you to navigate from point A to point B easily. Now, smartphone GPSs are a little bit different because with a smartphone, again, there is the GPS receiver and the antennas built in, but they usually use something called AGPS, which stands for assisted GPS. Now, the assisted part comes from the fact that because it's a smartphone and it's connected to the cell phone network, it can actually connect to local towers and get some extra positional data. It can use the data connection and download extra goodies and traffic warnings and all kinds of other stuff. But the assisted part just means that instead of your gizmo having to lock onto only satellites, the AGPS devices can actually get some extra positional data, more or less, from the cell phone network, and it can lock onto your position much more quickly. Okay, so then the question is, well, why would you want to use one of these instead of, say, the GPS in your car? Now, I've used the GPS navigation systems in many different cars, makes and models, and I find that they all suck. Sometimes you can't change the maps on there. Like, say, I live in Europe, so one car, it had only maps for France. Well, if I drive south, if I go southwest and I end up in Spain, there are no maps, which means there's no GPS. In a pinch, automotive GPS, yeah, it works. It gets you from point A to point B. It's usually, even if it's, say, like a TomTom system, it's not exactly the same as like the dedicated version. There's usually some features that are removed, or it doesn't work quite the same, and I just kind of also find them sort of annoying, but maybe that's just me. But with auto GPSs, mostly it's cost to keep the maps up to date. It's rather expensive. And as I said, I don't find them quite as effective as a dedicated device. Okay, what about smartphones? Because, I mean, the smartphone is connected to the cellular data network, right? Isn't that better? Well, it turns out that you can go on Google and you can search. Many articles have been written, and also you can, when you're done watching this video, you can search YouTube. There are other videos where, like some guys got together a bunch of GPS devices, smartphones, dedicated GPS. They mounted them all on a bicycle, went for a ride, and they compared the accuracy, the speed with which it locked onto the satellite signals, elevation, accuracy, all that kind of stuff. And what they found is basically that some devices are better than others, but generally speaking, in terms of the actual practical get me from point A to point B functionality, pretty much they're all equal. Like in some cases, like an iPhone 5 was slightly better. In subsequent tests, it was actually worse. So they're all pretty much equal in terms of their accuracy and their functionality, let's say. Now, there are a few drawbacks to smartphone GPS, and that is the fact that they are actually connected to the cellular data network. So when you're using, say, your Android smartphone, it's going to use, let's say, Google Maps. Now, the smartphone doesn't actually have all the map data for, say, all of Europe or all of the US stored in the memory on the smartphone, because, of course, the smartphone has to do other things. So as you're actually driving along and you've got your smartphone in GPS mode and it's actually showing you a map, it actually has to download those map tiles. So you kind of have to have a data connection, or you have to have the cellular data connection, or you have to have a Wi-Fi connection in order for smartphone GPS to really work. Now, of course, it will kind of pre-download map tiles and blah, 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 but the point is that it's not really a standalone thing. It has to be, you need power, obviously, you need the satellites up there, but you also need the data connection for it to actually work. The second problem with that is, as we all know, especially from some of my former videos, Google likes to hoover up lots of data. So in terms of privacy, you're not really going to want to use your smartphone as a GPS, because every single thing you do and everywhere you go, it's all getting shot up to the cloud in Google servers. And for me anyway, that's kind of a deal breaker, because I just want to get from point A to point B. I don't want someone watching over me, and mostly I don't want to need a cell phone connection. I don't want to need, what if I'm in kind of a rural area and the cellular network is maybe not so good? Then my navigation kind of stops working, or there are hiccups. With this dedicated guy, basically no data connection, and also it's got this little micro SD card in here. It's a little 8 gig card, and that's where all the maps are stored. So you can take this guy, and 4 times a year Garmin will release, this is a Garmin 2445 LM, Garmin Nuvi 2445 LM. It's a 2012 model, so it's about 7 years old at this point. It still works great, and about 4 times a year Garmin will release map updates. So what you do is you take this guy, you plug the USB cable in, you have the Garmin software that they give you for free installed in your computer, you plug him in via USB, the app pops up and it says, hey, I got software updates, I've got like FM traffic provider updates, I've got a giant map update for you. Do you want to update? You click yes, you come back an hour or two later, and boom, your maps are up to date. And all of the maps are actually stored on the memory card in here. So all I need is power, and of course I have an automotive adapter, so the battery doesn't even need to be charged. I basically get in the car, plug this sucker in, and it's going. And there's no data hoovering going on. That's it. It just does what I need it to do. It's also extremely useful because this guy is relatively small. I've actually used him when I've been in big cities. You can put him in a bicycle mode. You can put him in a pedestrian mode. I've used the pedestrian mode a few times, and it's pretty handy because I don't have a smartphone. I use my dumb phone, my Nokia 3310. So I also just take this little guy with me, and if I'm driving, I use him in the car. And if I'm walking, say one time I was in Paris and I needed to know how to get somewhere, I put it in pedestrian mode, I type in my location, and I click go, and then I just stick it in my pocket, and the thing is it's figuring out where I am, and it's like talking out of my pocket saying, in 10 feet, turn right. and it's pretty handy. So they are also extremely durable. If you take a smartphone and you drop it on the asphalt or something, you're going to have a cracked screen and everything. Generally speaking, these dedicated GPS devices, they have touch screens, but they're kind of old-fashioned touch screens. They don't have like Gorilla Glass 3 that's indestructible unless you drop it on the corner and then it shatters into 35,000 pieces. No, they're very durable. Like, I've dropped this thing several times I'm pretty tall, so from fairly high up, and sure, it has a few little markings in the case, but it keeps working. They're very durable. You can pop it on your bike. If it falls off and hits the ground, you'll be fine. With a smartphone, that's not really the case. You have to be pretty careful. So durability is also a big plus. Now, of course, you're probably thinking, well, yeah, but I have a smartphone already, so I don't want to pay a lot of money. There's a common misconception that these things are very expensive. As I said, this is a Garmin Nuvi 2445 LM. I bought it back in 2012. It was $89. And it comes with free lifetime map updates for all of Europe. So, I mean, $89, you're done. Now this is, as I said, a 7-year-old version. There are new versions, but let's see. In Europe, it's the Garmin Drive 51, which is about like 100, and you can get it for like 119 euros, and that's, say all of Europe lifetime map updates. In the USA, you can get the Garmin Drive 50 USA. It comes with maps for the entire United States. It's $114. Now, if that's a little bit too steep, you can actually get a slightly older model, because one thing to keep in mind here is that, like, this is not a super fancy capacitive, like, mega crazy touchscreen with Gorilla Glass 22. Like, no, it's I'm pretty sure these are like resistive touchscreens. They work fairly well, but they're using kind of older technology because it kind of keeps it more durable, and you don't need super precise touch because, like, the buttons, the areas you're touching are big, and you're not like typing a lot on it. And so even the screen resolutions, this is 4.3 inches. The new Garmin 50 series, they have 5-inch screens, but the resolution is something like 424 by 270 pixels. Even when you go up to the 6-inch screens, which are more expensive, the 6-inch Garmin's, it's the same screen resolution, because you don't need it. You don't need like a 4K screen resolution on a device that has sort of cartoony pictures of maps. You just need just enough, and that also keeps the cost down. So because these devices haven't really changed that much over the years in terms of like the screen and the basic functionality, a device that's like this one that's 7 years old is going to suit you just fine. It's going to work just fine. This one has like lane guidance and all this other nonsense. So you could even look for a slightly older model like the Garmin. There's a 40 series, I think, you can get for like $70 or $80. There's also this model I couldn't find anywhere, but there's various older models. You can even go and find, like, look on the classifieds or something and find somebody selling one. They'll sell them for like $30 or $40 because no one wants one. You just get it, and if it has like the lifetime map updates, you just put the Garmin software on, you update the map, and for $30 or $40 you've got yourself a perfectly usable GPS, and it's not that expensive. Also, one last thing. So the other reason why I like my Garmin GPS is because back in 2011, 2012, Garmin released custom voices, and you pay like $12, and I got the Yoda voice. So with my Garmin GPS, Yoda actually tells me where to go. Now, what could be cooler than that? So, like, I'll be sitting there driving along, and Yoda will pipe up and say, in 450 meters, enter the roundabout you will. Round and round goes Yoda. And I'm like, that's awesome. And then you get on the highway, and Yoda will tell me, here I am, and it'll say, okay, you're going to continue like 50 kilometers on this road, and about 10 kilometers down the road, Yoda hasn't said anything for a while because I'm on a straight stretch of road. He doesn't need to, but 10 or 20 kilometers down the road, after he hasn't said anything for a while, suddenly Obi-Wan Kenobi will pipe up and inform me that the Force will be with me always, just randomly. So, maybe I could make my smartphone do it, but I still don't like the data hoovering part. And so yeah, you can get a dedicated Garmin GPS, and you can have Yoda tell you where to go. The new way that Garmin does it is they have, I forget what it's called. It's like Garmin Voice Studio, I think. And it's a piece of software you download, and you can actually record any person or your dog or whatever, and they have you read a bunch of phrases, and they record them, and it trims them, and then it bundles them all together and gives you a file you can put on your device via USB. So you could have, say, your favorite person in the world instructing you where to go. Or if you can do Yoda impressions, you could make your own Yoda voice telling you where to go, which probably wouldn't be as good as the real Yoda, but... Right, so I guess that's about it. I'll put some links in the description to these various gizmos, and yeah, that's it. For more techie tips, see ScottiesTech.Info. Thanks for watching. See you next time.